Ryan Cole sat on the worn wooden bench of his front porch, the morning sun casting long shadows over the quiet suburban street. His gaze swept the row of neatly trimmed lawns and tidy houses, each one a testament to the calm and order that his neighborhood promised. Yet beneath the surface of this peaceful veneer, Ryan knew better than most that life was rarely as simple as it seemed. Though the streets appeared serene, the occasional flicker of hardship showed itself in cracked sidewalks, a broken mailbox here, a hurriedly patched fence there. These small imperfections whispered stories of struggle, reminders that beneath suburban tranquility lay stories of resilience and quiet battles. Ryan's hands rested on his knees, calloused and steady, a reminder of the years he had served as a Navy SEAL. His military tattoos peeked from beneath the rolled sleeves of his flannel shirt, their ink faded, but their meaning undiminished. The years had etched lines into his face, a map of experience and sacrifice. But his eyes still held the sharp focus of a man who had faced the edge of danger and returned. Now, the fight was different. The battlefield was no longer foreign sands or shadowy enemy lines, but the unspoken challenges of civilian life, finding purpose, shaking the ghosts of combat, and carving out a place where peace could finally take root. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. The neighborhood was a world apart from the chaos Ryan had left behind. Yet the transition was proving harder than he had imagined. He had expected the quiet to soothe him, to offer a reprieve from the constant adrenaline and tension. Instead, the silence felt heavy, almost suffocating, stirring a restlessness deep inside. His nights were often restless, haunted by memories and the nagging sense that he was meant for something more than quiet observation. The neighbors waved politely, their smiles warm but distant, as if unsure how to bridge the gap between their everyday lives and the storm Ryan carried within. On the street, a child's bicycle lay abandoned on its side, the bright red paint chipped and fading. Nearby, a woman hurried past with a grocery bag too heavy for her frame, her face tight with the strain of a long day. These fragments of life were familiar, yet distant, like scenes from a play that Ryan watched but barely touched. He wanted to reach out, to be part of something bigger than his own silent struggle. But the weight of his past held him back. He stood and stretched, the stiffness in his back a reminder that even a man hardened by war was vulnerable to the passage of time. The crisp morning air filled his lungs, sharp and invigorating, as he considered his next steps. The neighborhood, with its manicured lawns and quiet streets, seemed to offer a fresh start. But Ryan sensed that, beneath its polite surface, there were stories waiting to be told. Stories he might need to hear, and perhaps stories he would be drawn into. His boots thudded softly against the pavement as he began a slow patrol of the block, a habit he had developed since returning. It was a way to stay grounded, to feel the rhythm of the world outside his front door. The houses stood silent, their windows reflecting the soft light of dawn. A dog barked in the distance, breaking the stillness, and Ryan's eyes narrowed briefly. The sound was familiar, but carried a note of urgency, a reminder that life was rarely as calm as it appeared on the surface. Ryan's mind drifted back to his last deployment, the missions where every moment counted and every decision was life or death. Here the stakes were different, but the instinct to protect was just as strong. He was a man trained to respond, to act, to face threats head-on. Now, his battlefield was the neighborhood, and his mission was to find a way to belong, to protect not with weapons and firepower, but with vigilance and heart. As he walked, Ryan noticed a few neighbors beginning their day. An elderly man tending to his garden, a mother coaxing her children into the car for school. These small routines offered a sense of normalcy that Ryan both envied and sought. He knew that beneath the surface of these everyday moments, there were challenges and hardships that didn't always show. And somewhere in these streets, perhaps, was a purpose waiting for him to discover. Ryan paused at the end of the block, his gaze falling on the distant outline of a burned-down house. Smoke still curled faintly from the blackened remains, a stark contrast to the orderly homes surrounding it. A German shepherd stood guard nearby, its posture alert and unwavering despite the destruction. The dog's presence was a silent sentinel, a stark reminder that this neighborhood was not immune to pain and loss. His instincts, honed by years of training and survival, stirred. Something about the scene unsettled him. Not just the fire's aftermath, but the dog's refusal to leave, its fierce loyalty to a place marked by ruin. Ryan took a cautious step forward, the weight of his past urging him to investigate, even as he fought the urge to retreat into the safety of anonymity. The neighborhood's calm facade was cracking, revealing shadows that Ryan had not anticipated. The burned house was a sign, a signal that beneath the quiet streets were stories of danger, resilience, and perhaps redemption. Ryan's heart quickened, not with fear, but with the spark of purpose he had been searching for. He wasn't just a man trying to escape his past. He was a protector ready to face whatever lay ahead. As the sun climbed higher, casting light on the smoldering ruins and the steadfast dog at its side, Ryan took a deep breath and moved closer. The journey from soldier to civilian was just beginning, and he would meet it not with resignation, but with the same courage and resolve that had defined his life before. The neighborhood, with all its hidden struggles, was calling him to action. And Ryan Cole was ready to answer. The burned house sat like a blackened scar at the end of the street, its skeletal frame jutting jaggedly into the pale morning light. Ryan Cole's boots crunched softly on the gravel as he approached, the acrid smell of smoke still heavy in the air. The neighborhood's usual chorus of chirping birds and distant lawnmowers was conspicuously absent here, swallowed by the eerie stillness that clung to the ruins. The house was a hollow shell, once a place of warmth and life, now reduced to smoldering ash and twisted beams. His eyes caught the figure of a German shepherd standing firm at the edge of the wreckage. The dog's fur was singed in places, and its ribs showed plainly beneath a coat dulled by soot and grime. Despite its injuries, the dog held an unwavering vigil, muscles tense and ears pricked, scanning the shadows as if guarding against unseen threats. Its deep brown eyes met Ryan's with a mixture of wariness and silent plea. Ryan crouched a few feet away, careful to keep his movements slow and non-threatening. "Hey there, boy," he murmured softly, his voice steady but gentle. The dog's growl rumbled low in its throat, a warning that Ryan understood not to ignore. Still, the canine's loyalty was palpable. This was no ordinary stray, but a guardian who refused to abandon its post. He scanned the perimeter, noting scorch marks on the neighboring fences and the singed remains of a garden hose tangled in the dirt. The fire had been recent. Smoke still drifted from the blackened timbers, and something about the scene felt deliberate, calculated. Ryan's instincts sharpened. This wasn't a simple accident, but a message writ in flames. As he edged closer, Ryan caught the faintest sound beneath the debris. A soft, uneven groan carried on the wind. His heart tightened. The dog stiffened, growling again, this time more urgent, and dashed a few steps forward before halting abruptly. It was clear the dog sensed what Ryan had only just begun to hear. Someone trapped, hidden within the wreckage. "Hang on," Ryan whispered, the words more to steel himself than to anyone else. Years of rescue training surged to the forefront of his mind. Without hesitation, he moved toward the ruins, eyes sharp for any sign of movement. The dog retreated slightly, but remained close, its protective stance unwavering. Pieces of charred wood and fallen beams formed a precarious maze. Ryan's fingers brushed over the smoldering edges, careful to avoid igniting fresh flames. The groaning grew louder, pained and desperate, pulling him deeper into the wreckage. Beneath a collapsed ceiling beam, he spotted a pale hand, smeared with dirt and ash, struggling against the rubble. "K9," Ryan called softly, reaching for his phone to call emergency services, but the signal was weak here, the neighborhood's outskirts often lacking reliable coverage. He knew he couldn't wait for backup. Time was critical. His training kicked in. Move fast, stay calm, improvise. The dog, whom Ryan silently named Max, stayed by his side, occasionally barking softly at the shifting debris as if warning him of unstable sections. Ryan shifted his weight, bracing against a weakened beam, then began carefully lifting pieces of broken wood. Sweat beaded on his forehead, the exertion heavy, but his focus was absolute. The trapped individual was faint but conscious, her breathing shallow and her skin clammy with shock. "I'm here," Ryan assured her, voice firm but soothing. "I'm going to get you out." Her eyes fluttered open, revealing a spark of recognition and relief. The dog's growls softened into whimpers of encouragement, nuzzling her hand through the gaps in the debris. With a grunt, Ryan shifted a particularly large plank aside, revealing more of the woman's form. Cuts and bruises marred her exposed skin, and her clothes were singed and torn. But she was alive. Ryan's hands moved swiftly, checking for broken bones or other injuries, while coaxing Max away from the unstable area to prevent further harm. "Max, stay." The dog obeyed reluctantly, pacing nearby but alert. Ryan pulled a jacket from his pack and gently draped it over the woman, shielding her from the morning chill. "You're going to be okay. Help is on the way." The faint sound of sirens in the distance gave Ryan a brief surge of hope, but he knew they were still minutes away, minutes that could make all the difference. He scanned the area once more, noting scorch patterns and the fire's origin point. Someone had started this blaze intentionally, and it was no coincidence that the woman had been caught inside. Max suddenly stiffened, ears pinned back, growling at a shadow moving near the edge of the street. Ryan turned sharply, hand dropping instinctively to the side where a concealed knife hung at his waist. A figure slipped into the shadows, disappearing before Ryan could get a clear look. The neighborhood's peaceful facade was a thin veil over a darker truth. He turned back to the woman. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Elise," she whispered, her voice hoarse but steady. I think someone tried to kill me." Ryan's jaw tightened. The pieces were falling into place. This was no random fire. It was an attack, a warning meant to silence someone. And Max had been her protector through it all, refusing to leave her side even when everything burned. The fire truck's wail grew louder, and within moments, firefighters and paramedics were on scene, moving quickly with practiced efficiency. Ryan stepped back, allowing them to take over while keeping a protective eye on Max and Elise. The dog's loyalty never wavered, even as paramedics lifted Elise onto a stretcher, covering her wounds and speaking softly to calm her. A fire captain approached Ryan, nodding respectfully. "You found her?" Ryan nodded. She was trapped under debris. The dog wouldn't leave her side. The captain glanced toward Max. Looks like that dog saved her life. Ryan's gaze swept the neighborhood once more, the sense of something lurking beneath the surface deepening. This was only the beginning. The quiet streets held secrets, and Ryan knew that to protect people like Elise and even Max, he would have to step fully into the shadows now creeping into his new life. As the emergency crews worked, Ryan stood beside Max. The dog's steady presence a reminder that sometimes salvation came from the most unexpected places. The burned house behind them was a stark symbol, a call to action that Ryan could no longer ignore. The fire engine's flashing lights painted the quiet street in urgent reds and blues as paramedics moved swiftly around the burned ruins. Ryan stood just beyond the perimeter tape, the sharp smell of smoke still lingering in the cold morning air. His eyes never left the smoldering debris where Elise had been trapped. The memory of her pale, fragile hand beneath the rubble seared into his mind. A firefighter approached, his face streaked with soot, nodding in recognition. "You did good getting her out," he said, voice rough from the smoke. "Without you, she wouldn't have made it." Ryan nodded but kept his gaze fixed on Max, the German shepherd now lying low near the curb, still alert despite exhaustion. The dog's loyalty had been unyielding, a silent guardian through the fire's deadly grip. Ryan felt a quiet respect for the animal, a kindred survivor in a world that had suddenly grown much darker. Even as the emergency responders worked to stabilize Elise, Ryan's mind was racing. The fire had been no accident. Someone had set it deliberately, and someone had wanted Elise gone. The weight of that realization settled heavily on him. This neighborhood, which had seemed a refuge, was now a battleground of unseen threats. "Can I talk to her?" Ryan asked a paramedic who was securing an oxygen mask on Elise. "Not yet," she replied. "She's stable but shaken. You might have to wait a little." Ryan's jaw tightened. Waiting wasn't his strong suit, but he understood. First, she needed to recover enough to speak. He glanced at Max again, who lifted his head and let out a low whine. Stepping back, Ryan pulled out his phone and tried to call emergency dispatch, but the signal was patchy at best. He cursed under his breath. This neighborhood's edges were notorious for poor reception. Still, he needed to alert someone, anyone, about the deeper danger lurking beneath the surface. His thoughts were interrupted by the low murmur of voices nearby. A woman in a uniform approached. Detective Marla Hayes, a familiar face Ryan had met once before when he first returned. Her expression was serious, eyes scanning the scene like a hunter assessing a fresh kill. "Ryan," she said briskly, her tone edged with concern. "You found her?" Ryan nodded, shifting his weight. She was trapped under the debris. The fire was no accident. Someone wanted her out. Marla's gaze hardened. Elise has been a thorn in some powerful people's sides. She's been investigating illegal activity in the area, arson, intimidation, all linked to a local syndicate. If this was meant to silence her, we're dealing with something serious. Ryan's pulse quickened. This was bigger than a burned house or a loyal dog refusing to leave a victim's side. It was a tangled web of crime and corruption threading through the neighborhood, threatening anyone who dared to expose it. "We need to protect her," Ryan said. "And Max, that dog's been her guardian." Marla sighed, pulling out her phone. "I'm arranging for protective custody, but Elise needs medical clearance first. Can you stay? Your experience might be invaluable if things escalate." Ryan didn't hesitate. "I'm in." As Marla moved off to coordinate, Ryan's eyes drifted back to the ruins. The neighborhood's facade of calm was cracking, revealing shadows that stretched far beyond this single fire. The silence was dangerous now, a mask hiding threats that could reach anyone. Minutes passed, and finally, Elise was moved onto a stretcher, her eyes fluttering open briefly as she caught sight of Ryan. There was pain there, but also a fierce determination that refused to be extinguished. Ryan leaned down, voice low but steady. "You're safe now. We're going to find out who did this." She nodded weakly, whispering, "Thank you." The first responders loaded Elise into an ambulance, and Ryan turned to watch the vehicle pull away, Max following loyally at its side. The dog's eyes met his once more, and Ryan felt an unspoken bond form between them. Two protectors navigating a world suddenly fraught with danger. As the street settled into an uneasy quiet once more, Ryan knew the peaceful neighborhood he had sought was gone. In its place was a fight that demanded everything he had learned and more. He was no longer just a man trying to heal. He was a sentinel standing guard against the darkness threatening to consume those around him. The investigation was just beginning, and Ryan was ready to step into the fray, knowing that sometimes survival meant more than escaping the past. It meant confronting the fires still burning in the present. The night had settled over the neighborhood like a heavy blanket, the stars obscured by thick clouds that threatened rain. Ryan Cole sat in the dim glow of his living room, the flickering light from the television casting shadows that danced across the walls. Yet, his attention was far from the screen. Instead, his mind churned relentlessly over the events of the day. The burned house, Elise trapped beneath the debris, and the silent sentinel Max, whose loyalty had never wavered. The calm he had sought in this quiet suburb was slipping away, replaced by a gnawing sense of urgency. His phone buzzed softly on the coffee table, and he reached for it without hesitation. The screen displayed Marla Hayes' name. He answered on the third ring. "Any news?" he asked, voice low. "Elise is stable." Marla's voice came through, tinged with fatigue. "But she's still weak. We'll have to wait a bit before she can talk in detail. I'm setting up surveillance around her hospital room. We can't take any chances. If someone wanted her dead once, they might try again." Ryan nodded to himself, even though she couldn't see him. "Understood. I'm heading over now. Max needs to be checked out too. That dog's as much a part of this as Elise." They arranged to meet at the hospital, a sterile building that hummed with quiet urgency. When Ryan arrived, Marla was already there, briefing a small team of officers. The hospital corridor was hushed, punctuated only by the distant beeping of monitors and soft footsteps. Elise lay in a bed near a window, her dark hair tangled and damp with sweat. Though pale, her eyes were sharp once she noticed Ryan. Max rested at her feet, his head tilted slightly, alert even in exhaustion. Ryan crouched beside the bed, meeting her gaze. "Hey," he said gently. "I'm Ryan. We're going to get through this." Elise managed a faint smile. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." Marla stepped forward. "Elise, we need to know who you think did this. Who wanted you silenced?" Elise's eyes flickered with hesitation, then steeled with resolve. "There's a group, the Syndicate. They've been behind the fires, the threats. I've been gathering evidence, trying to expose them. But someone's been watching me. Someone within the police. I don't know who I can trust." Ryan's jaw tightened. Corruption within the force was a shadow he'd faced before, a poisonous secret that could undermine everything. He glanced at Marla, whose expression darkened. "We'll get to the bottom of this," Marla assured her. "But we'll need your help when you're strong enough." Elise nodded, exhaustion pulling at her eyelids. Ryan looked down at Max, who let out a soft whine. The dog had been hurt defending her, but his eyes still held fierce loyalty. Later, as the hospital staff stepped away, Ryan found himself alone with Max. The dog's injuries were more than superficial. His paw was swollen and his breathing uneven. Ryan's hands moved carefully over the wounded paw, applying pressure to stem the swelling. "You're a fighter, Max. We'll get you patched up." He called a local veterinarian friend, Sarah, who had once served as a medic in the military. Within an hour, she arrived with her kit, her presence a calming contrast to the tense atmosphere. Sarah worked swiftly, cleaning Max's wounds and bandaging his paw with practiced efficiency. "He's tough," Sarah said, smiling faintly. "But he needs rest. No more heroics for a while." Ryan nodded, grateful for her expertise. "Thanks, Sarah. We're going to need all the help we can get." As the night deepened, Ryan sat by Elise's bedside, his thoughts racing. The syndicate's reach was long, and the betrayal within the police force cut deep. Yet, in this hospital room, a fragile sanctuary amid the storm, he saw a spark of hope. Elise's courage, Max's loyalty, and the slow-forming alliance with Marla and Sarah were threads weaving together a plan. Outside, the rain finally began to fall, soft drops pattering against the window pane. The neighborhood might have seemed quiet, but beneath the surface, a battle was unfolding. Ryan understood now that his fight wasn't just about survival. It was about justice, about protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. He glanced once more at Elise, then at Max, resting uneasily on the floor. The road ahead was uncertain and dangerous, but Ryan's resolve was unwavering. Together, they would face the shadows lurking in their community, uncover the truth, and bring the hidden threats into the light. In this quiet room, surrounded by the soft rustle of rain and the steady beep of machines, a fragile alliance took root. One that would challenge the darkness and ignite the courage that had long been dormant in the heart of a soldier trying to find his way home. The morning light filtered softly through the hospital curtains, casting a pale glow over the room where Elise lay resting. Her breaths were steady, the harshness of the night's ordeal beginning to ease with each passing hour. Ryan Cole sat nearby, his eyes scanning the small details, the way her fingers twitched, the faint rise and fall of her chest. Signs of life that grounded him in the midst of uncertainty. Beside him, Max rested on a makeshift bed, his injured paw carefully bandaged, though he remained alert, always vigilant. The quiet was punctuated by the soft clicks of approaching footsteps. Sarah entered, her medical bag in hand, her expression calm yet focused. "How's our patient?" she asked, nodding toward Elise. Ryan gave a short smile. "Holding steady. She's still weak, but strong in spirit." Sarah set down her bag and pulled up a chair. "I've reviewed Max's wounds again. He's healing, but we'll need to monitor him closely. Dogs like him push through pain, but that can slow recovery." Ryan nodded. "He's a fighter, just like Elise. Both of them needed saving yesterday." Sarah's eyes flicked to Elise, who stirred briefly, opening her eyes to meet Ryan's gaze. "She's been through a lot. What's the plan?" Ryan leaned forward, voice low and steady. "We need to protect them both. Elise has information, evidence on this syndicate that's been terrorizing the neighborhood. It's not just random fires or threats. It's organized, and there's corruption inside the police force. We have to be careful who we trust." Sarah's brow furrowed. "That makes this more complicated. If the syndicate has insiders, anyone could be watching." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Exactly. That's why we need to move strategically. Marla's coordinating with the department, but we can't rely solely on official channels." The door opened again, and Marla Hayes stepped in, her badge catching the morning light. I've arranged for additional security around Elise's hospital room. Also, we're setting up a secure location once she's discharged. But we need to get her talking, to get the full picture. Elise's eyes fluttered open at the mention of her upcoming discharge. Her voice was a fragile whisper. I want to help. They need to be stopped. Ryan reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. We'll get through this together. Over the next few hours, the team gathered in a small, makeshift command center in Ryan's modest home. Maps of the neighborhood were pinned to the walls, along with photos and notes Elise had managed to share. The syndicate's reach was sprawling. Arson, intimidation, and worse, all aimed at controlling the community through fear. Elise pointed to several locations on the map. These fires weren't isolated. They targeted homes of people who spoke out against the syndicate. I've been tracking patterns, trying to gather proof. Ryan studied the points, the lines connecting them like veins of a dark network spreading beneath the surface. We need to identify their next move before more people get hurt. Sarah pulled out a laptop, displaying surveillance footage from street cameras near the burned house. I've enhanced this as much as possible. There's a figure seen near the property on the night of the fire. Hard to make out, but it's a start. Marla frowned. We'll cross-reference with known associates of the syndicate and anyone with access to police resources. Ryan's gaze landed on Max, who lay quietly but alert in the corner. The dog had been a steadfast guardian, a symbol of the loyalty and protection they all needed now. Max's instincts saved Elise, Ryan said softly. He might be able to help us track suspects too. Sarah nodded. Dogs have incredible senses. If we can keep him healthy, he could be a key asset. As the team worked, Elise's strength slowly returned. She shared more details, names, locations, and whispered rumors of a mole within the police force feeding information to the syndicate. The betrayal cut deep, but her determination never wavered. Ryan felt a growing sense of purpose. The quiet life he had sought in this neighborhood was no longer an option. He was part of a larger fight now, a protector not just in body, but in spirit. The skills honed in battle would be applied here, in the shadows of the community he was beginning to call home. Plans began to take shape. They would gather more evidence, protect Elise and Max, and prepare to confront the syndicate head-on. There was no room for mistakes. The stakes were too high, and the enemy was ruthless. As night fell, Ryan stood outside, the cool air brushing against his face. The neighborhood was still, but he knew the peace was fragile. Inside, Elise rested, guarded by allies forged in unexpected circumstances. Max's steady breathing was a reminder that loyalty and courage could come from the most unlikely places. Ryan's resolve solidified. The fight to expose the darkness creeping through the streets was just beginning, and he was ready to face whatever came next. Together, they would shine a light into the shadows and reclaim their community from fear and corruption. The neighborhood's early morning calm belied the tension that had been building beneath its surface. Ryan's footsteps were purposeful as he moved through the quiet streets, eyes sharp and alert. The once familiar suburban landscape now felt like a chessboard, each corner and alley a potential front in a hidden war. He wasn't just a passerby anymore. He was an investigator, a protector, a man who had traded the battlefield for the shadows of his own community. His military training guided him as he scanned the area, noting the subtle signs of disturbance. Discarded cigarette butts near locked gates, tire tracks worn into soft dirt patches, and the faint scent of gasoline lingering near a dumpster behind a local convenience store. These were the breadcrumbs left by the syndicate. hints of their movements and intentions. Ryan's instincts told him they were watching, waiting, and preparing for their next move. Back at his makeshift command center, the team was gathered, poring over maps and recent intelligence. Elise, still recovering but resolute, sat beside Marla as they reviewed surveillance footage captured from neighborhood cameras. The grainy images revealed shadowy figures moving under the cover of darkness, their faces obscured, but their purpose clear. "Look here." Marla pointed to a figure slipping between houses, carrying what appeared to be a duffel bag. "This matches the pattern we've seen around recent arson sites." Ryan leaned in, his gaze narrowing. "We need to identify this person. They're key to the syndicate's operations." Sarah tapped on her laptop, pulling up a database of known offenders and associates. "Cross-referencing now. There's a match. Someone with a criminal record linked to arson and intimidation." Elise's voice was steady but edged with urgency. "We're getting closer, but we have to be careful. There's a mole in the police department. If they catch wind of our progress, it could jeopardize everything." Ryan's mind raced. Betrayal from within was a dangerous enemy, one that lurked in the shadows of trust and authority. "We'll have to operate discreetly. No unnecessary exposure." That night, Ryan took to the streets alone, moving under the cover of darkness with Max by his side. The dog's keen senses were an asset, his ears twitching at the slightest sound, his nose tracking faint scents carried on the breeze. Together, they followed a trail that led toward the industrial outskirts of town, a place where the syndicate's operations seemed to converge. As they neared an abandoned warehouse, Ryan signaled Max to stay low. The building's silhouette loomed against the starless sky, its broken windows like dark eyes watching their approach. Inside, muffled voices and the clatter of crates suggested activity. Ryan's pulse quickened, adrenaline sharpening his senses. He activated a small camera, positioning it to capture the entrance without revealing his presence. From his vantage point, he observed figures unloading packages, likely contraband tied to the syndicate's network. The scene confirmed what Elise had feared. The syndicate was preparing another move, escalating their grip on the community. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows nearby, forcing Ryan to freeze. The man's face was obscured by a hood, but his voice was low and threatening. "You're a long way from home, soldier." Ryan's hand moved instinctively toward the concealed knife at his side, but he remained still. "I'm just passing through," he replied evenly, masking the tension beneath. The man stepped closer, the glint of a weapon catching the faint light. Before confrontation could escalate, Max growled deeply, stepping between Ryan and the stranger. The dog's fierce stance was a warning. This was no ordinary patrol. The stranger hesitated, then melted back into the darkness. Ryan exhaled slowly, his senses on high alert. The syndicate's reach was closer than he had thought, and their enforcers were watching. Returning to the command center, Ryan shared the footage and encounter details. The team's faces were grim but determined. "We're closing in," Elise said, her voice steady despite the risks. "But the mole remains a threat. We need to flush them out before making any moves." Marla nodded. "Agreed. I'm coordinating with internal affairs, but it's slow going. Trust is fragile." Ryan's resolve hardened. The neighborhood was no longer just a place to live. It was a battleground for justice and survival. With Elise's knowledge, Marla's authority, Sarah's medical expertise, and Max's instincts, they formed a fragile but powerful alliance. As dawn broke, Ryan stood once more at the edge of the neighborhood, the rising sun casting long shadows over streets that held both danger and hope. The syndicate's grip was tightening, but so was their resolve. The fight was far from over, and Ryan knew that every step forward brought them closer to the truth and to the confrontation that awaited. The night air was thick with anticipation as Ryan, Elise, Marla, and Sarah gathered in the dimly lit warehouse that had been their impromptu command center for the past week. The walls, lined with maps and photographs, bore witness to their relentless pursuit of the syndicate that had terrorized their neighborhood. Every detail they had painstakingly gathered was about to culminate in a dangerous gambit, one that could bring the criminals into the open or plunge them deeper into the shadows. Elise stood at the center of the group, her voice steady despite the gravity of their plan. "I'll be the bait," she said. "If we can lure them out, we can catch them red-handed. But we have to be ready for anything." Ryan nodded, his military instincts kicking in. "We'll set up a perimeter. Max and I will be the eyes and ears. Marla, you coordinate with the local DEA agents. We need backup in case this goes sideways." Marla's expression was grim but resolute. "I've already alerted them. They're on standby, ready to move in when we give the word." The tension in the room was palpable as they finalized their roles. Elise's bravery was the linchpin of their operation, and Ryan couldn't help but admire her courage. The neighborhood's fate rested on the success of this plan, and failure was not an option. As darkness enveloped the town, the team moved into position. Elise's vehicle was parked conspicuously near an abandoned warehouse, the syndicate's known rendezvous point. Ryan and Max concealed themselves in the shadows atop a nearby ridge, their vantage point offering a clear line of sight. Marla and the DEA agents positioned themselves strategically, ready to converge when the signal was given. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the distant rustling of leaves and the occasional bark of a strayed dog. Ryan's gaze remained fixed on the warehouse entrance, muscles coiled like a predator waiting to strike. Max lay beside him, ears twitching, senses attuned to every movement. Suddenly, headlights pierced the darkness. A convoy of vehicles rolled toward the warehouse, their occupants moving with purpose. Ryan's pulse quickened as figures exited the cars, unloading crates and equipment. Among them, a man with a commanding presence, Lieutenant Marcus Sterling, stepped forward, his demeanor cold and calculating. Elise, concealed within her vehicle, sent a quiet signal through her phone. Ryan acknowledged with a subtle nod, fingers poised on his radio. The stage was set. As Sterling barked orders, a tense standoff unfolded. Ryan relayed updates to Marla, who coordinated the agents' movements. The criminals were unaware of the trap closing around them. Then, chaos erupted. Sterling, realizing the ambush, grabbed a young boy from the crowd as a human shield, his voice dripping with menace. "Nobody moves, or the kid pays the price." Ryan's training surged forward. Max sprang into action, lunging at Sterling, teeth bared. The distraction gave Elise the opening to escape her vehicle and draw her weapon. Shots rang out, echoing through the night. Ryan took a sniper position, steadying his breath as he covered the perimeter. His eyes locked on Sterling, calculating the risk. The boy's safety was paramount. With precise timing, Max bit down, forcing Sterling to release the child. Elise moved swiftly, cuffing the lieutenant as the DEA agents swept in. The remaining syndicate members surrendered, their operation dismantled in a flurry of controlled chaos. In the aftermath, the neighborhood's fragile peace began to mend. Elise's bravery and the team's coordinated effort had brought justice to a place shadowed by fear. Ryan allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction, knowing that the battle was hard won but far from over. Max lay at Ryan's feet, tail wagging gently, a silent hero in his own right. Marla began the process of rooting out corruption within the police force. while Sarah tended to the wounded and helped rebuild trust in the community. Together, they had faced the storm and emerged victorious, their alliance forged in fire and tempered by resolve. The fight for their home continued. But for now, there was a glimmer of hope shining through the darkness. The sun rose slowly over the neighborhood, casting a warm golden light that softened the scars left by days of chaos and confrontation. Streets once shadowed by fear now held the tentative glow of renewal. Ryan stood near the edge of the town square, watching as residents began to emerge from their homes, their faces marked by exhaustion, but also by a quiet determination to reclaim their lives. The community gathering was already underway in the park, a modest bandstand adorned with fresh flowers and banners celebrating resilience. Families, neighbors, and local officials mingled, sharing stories and offering support. Children played nearby, their laughter a fragile but powerful antidote to the recent darkness. Elise, now fully recovered and dressed in a simple blouse and jeans, stood alongside Marla and Sarah at the front of the gathering. She spoke steadily into the microphone, her voice carrying a message of courage and hope. "We faced danger together," she said, eyes sweeping the crowd. "But what saved us was the strength of our community and the bravery of those who refused to be silenced." Ryan watched from a distance, blending into the background as he often did. His role had shifted from solitary protector to a quiet pillar within the community. The wounds inflicted by the syndicate would take time to heal, but the spirit that had withstood the storm was unbreakable. Marla took the stage next, outlining the steps being taken to root out corruption within the police force. Her words were firm and resolute, promising transparency and justice. The crowd responded with applause, a collective affirmation that change was underway. Sarah moved through the gathering, speaking with residents about plans for a new wildlife rescue center, an initiative born from her passion and the desire to nurture hope amid hardship. Her enthusiasm was infectious, inspiring many to volunteer and support the cause. Max, now fully healed, trotted happily among the crowd, his tail wagging as children knelt to pet him. The dog had become a symbol of loyalty and protection, a living reminder of the bond between humans and animals forged in adversity. Ryan found himself approached by several neighbors, their gratitude sincere and heartfelt. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of belonging, a connection that transcended the invisible barriers he had carried since returning home. As the gathering drew to a close, Elise approached Ryan, her expression softening. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything." Ryan nodded, a faint smile breaking his usually stoic demeanor. "We did it together." The neighborhood was far from perfect, but it was healing. The shadows that had once threatened to consume it were receding, replaced by a community willing to stand united against whatever challenges lay ahead. As the sun climbed higher, Ryan took a deep breath, the weight of the past lifting slightly. The fight had been costly, but it had forged bonds that would last. He knew there would be more battles to come, but for now, peace was a gift to be cherished. Max rested at his side, a constant companion through the journey. Together, they walked back toward the heart of the neighborhood, ready to face the future with quiet strength and unwavering loyalty. The evening air was cool and crisp as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the town square where the community had gathered once more. This time, the mood was lighter, marked by smiles and quiet conversations rather than tension and fear. A modest stage had been set up near the pavilion, decorated with banners celebrating the bravery of those who had stood against the darkness that once gripped their neighborhood. Ryan stood near the back, blending into the crowd as he often did, his presence steady but unobtrusive. Around him, familiar faces, neighbors, friends, and allies, milled about, their expressions bright with gratitude and relief. Children ran through the crowd, their laughter a testament to the healing taking place. At the center of the gathering, Elise stepped up to the microphone, her posture confident and calm. "Today, we honor the courage and resilience that saved our community," she began, her voice clear and unwavering. "We faced threats that sought to divide and silence us, but together we stood strong. This victory belongs to every one of you." Applause rippled through the crowd, heartfelt and sincere. Elise's eyes scanned the audience until they landed on Ryan, who gave a small nod in return. It was a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had shared, a journey from fear to hope. Next, Marla took the stage, her badge gleaming in the fading light. "The work to root out corruption within our police force is ongoing," she announced. "But thanks to the bravery of our citizens and the tireless efforts of our team, we are making progress. Trust is being rebuilt, and justice will prevail." The crowd responded with cheers, a collective affirmation that change was not only possible, but underway. Marla's words carried weight, offering assurance that the shadows that had loomed were shrinking. Sarah followed, her smile warm as she spoke about the new Wildlife Rescue Center, a beacon of hope and healing born from the trials they had endured. "This center will not only care for injured animals, but also serve as a symbol of renewal for our entire community," she said. "We invite everyone to join us in this mission of compassion and recovery." As she stepped down, Max bounded onto the stage, tail wagging enthusiastically. Children rushed forward, eager to greet the dog who had become a living emblem of loyalty and protection. Ryan watched, a quiet pride swelling within him as the crowd embraced the bond between human and animal. A bond forged in adversity and strengthened by trust. After the formalities, Ryan found himself approached by neighbors whose gratitude was both heartfelt and humbling. "Thank you for looking out for us," one woman said, her eyes shining with emotion. "You gave us hope when we needed it most." Ryan offered a rare smile. "We all did this together. It's just the beginning." Elise joined him, her expression softening as she spoke. "You found a way to belong here. You're part of this community now." Ryan nodded slowly, the weight of his past easing with each passing moment. He had sought peace in solitude, but found it instead through connection and purpose. As twilight deepened, the crowd began to disperse, the streets once again settling into quiet. Ryan and Max lingered a moment longer, taking in the scene, a neighborhood healing, united by courage and resilience. Walking home, Ryan felt a renewed sense of belonging. The battles they had fought had left scars, but they had also forged bonds that would endure. The fight for justice and safety was ongoing, but for now, the community stood stronger, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Max trotted faithfully at his side, a steadfast companion in a world that was slowly finding its light again. Together, they stepped forward, connected by loyalty and hope, ready to protect the home they had reclaimed. The morning sun cast a soft glow over Silver Ridge, painting the town in warm hues of gold and amber. The streets buzzed gently with life, neighbors greeting each other, children chasing after frisbees in the park, and storefronts beginning to stir with activity. The scars left by recent turmoil were still visible, the charred remains of the burned house now cleared, the fresh paint on the police station's walls signaling change, but the spirit of the town was unmistakably renewed. Ryan Cole stood quietly near the edge of the park, his gaze sweeping across the familiar faces gathered for the community's first annual Heroes' Day. It was a celebration born from adversity, a tribute to those who had stood firm against fear and corruption. Amid the crowd, Ryan spotted Elise, her smile radiant as she spoke with neighbors, and Marla, her presence commanding respect as she coordinated the day's events. Sarah moved through the throng, her energy infectious as she rallied volunteers for the new Wildlife Rescue Center, which had become a symbol of hope and healing. Max trotted happily at Ryan's side, his tail wagging as children reached out to pet him. The dog had become a local legend, a reminder of loyalty, bravery, and the unbreakable bond between humans and their canine companions. As the ceremony began, Elise took the stage, her voice steady and heartfelt. "This day is more than a celebration," she said. "It's a reminder that courage can arise in many forms. From a determined woman standing against injustice, to a loyal dog refusing to leave a friend's side, to the quiet strength of a soldier finding his place in a community. Together, we have proven that resilience and unity can overcome even the darkest storms." The crowd erupted into applause, their faces alight with pride and gratitude. Ryan felt a deep swell of emotion, knowing that this moment was the culmination of countless sacrifices, quiet struggles, and unwavering hope. Marla followed, emphasizing the ongoing commitment to justice and transparency. "The work is far from over," she acknowledged. "But we have taken the first steps toward rebuilding trust and ensuring safety for all. Let this day inspire us to remain vigilant and united." Sarah then shared the story of the Wildlife Rescue Center's early successes, highlighting how compassion and community action could foster healing beyond human lives. Volunteers signed up eagerly, their willingness a testament to the town's revived spirit. As the sun climbed higher, Ryan found himself surrounded by neighbors who thanked him quietly. Their words were simple but profound, expressions of recognition for a man who had come seeking peace and found purpose. He realized that heroism wasn't always loud or grand. Sometimes, it was the steady presence that made all the difference. Later, Ryan and Max stood on a hill overlooking the town, the gentle breeze ruffling Ryan's hair. He breathed deeply, the air fresh and filled with promise. The journey from solitary veteran to community protector had been arduous, but it had brought him to a place where true peace was possible. Not in escape, but in connection. Max nudged his hand with a wet nose, a reminder that some bonds were unspoken, yet stronger than words. Ryan smiled, reaching down to scratch behind the dog's ears. Together, they watched as Silver Ridge thrived beneath the sun, a town reborn through resilience, loyalty, and the courage of everyday heroes. The future was uncertain, but with allies like Elise, Marla, Sarah, and Max by his side, Ryan knew they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the heart of this community, he had found not just a home, but a purpose, a testament to the strength that rises when people stand together, ready to protect and uplift one another. The spirit of Silver Ridge endured, a beacon of hope shining brightly against the fading shadows.